So UFC 300 is finally here, the card that has been promised to be the greatest event of the decade, and I'm going to be giving my early predictions for this card as I am headed away this weekend, but of course I'm going to be here next weekend live streaming a fight companion for the UFC 300 card. I'm really looking forward to it. Of course, for a very long time I was quite critical of the card, as to be fair, it hasn't quite been what it is promised, but it's still a massive event with former champions all over the card, banger fights to start the card, banger fights to end the card, and of course, let's just get into my early predictions. Before we do that though, you can get a 3-day free trial to wewinpicks.com which is normally $10 per month, but you get a 3-day free trial if you do sign up using my code ARTEM for 3 days, and you get access to all sorts of things. Angelo will be having bets on this card, so will Jacob, and you can also use all of their tools to make your own bets, as well as the AI fight picker. So if you want to see what it's all about, sign up using my code ARTEM for a 3-day free trial. So now let's get into it. Deiveson Figueiredo is going to be taking on Cody Garbrandt in the opening fight. It is a fantastic fight to open up the card, as this would probably be on the main card of a bad pay-per-view. I'm going to be going with Deiveson Figueiredo to win this one though. I feel like it's the very safe pick. I feel like there's a lot of safe picks on this card that I'm probably going to be making, but of course I do have a couple of underdogs later on. I like Figgy here. I mean, Figueiredo, I thought he looked pretty good at his move up to 135 pounds. He didn't look perfect, but I did think that he looked quite good. He was massive for 125, and he was starting to struggle to make the weight class. And I feel like Cody Garbrandt does fight similarly to Rob Font in a way, but maybe he incorporates a little bit more wrestling. But we know that Figgy can defend takedowns, and we know that he can grapple if the fight does go down to the ground, of course. Cody Garbrandt, on the other hand, you know, he was doing really well, and then he lost a lot after winning the title against Dominic Cruz. Got a massive comeback win over Rafael Assunção, but then just lost another couple of fights, one of them two being against Rob Font. Tried 125 himself, that really didn't work out, and now he's on a win streak back again, but against the lower level of bantamweight at the moment. I think Figueiredo probably finishes Kelleher in the first. Figueiredo probably finishes Trevin Jones as well, you know? I just don't think Cody Garbrandt, although he looked really, really good against Kelleher, he looked levels above Kelleher. You kind of would expect him to, especially if he's going to be taking on Figueiredo. I think this is a fun fight. I'm glad it's happening. But I do think Figgy takes it out 135, and I think Figgy's going to get a finish. The problem with Cody Garbrandt, which a lot of people bring up, is his chin. I don't really think it's his chin necessarily. It's just the fact that he gets super overzealous. He'll land something big, he'll start to go crazy, and he'll just leave himself wide open for a counter. I think Figgy, he's dangerous, he's powerful. He was one of the most powerful guys at 125 pounds we've ever seen. We haven't quite seen it translate to 135, but Rob Font is a tough guy. Marlon Vera knocked this guy down 20 times and he didn't finish him. Let's see what Figueiredo can do to Garbrandt. Figgy is minus 285 on the money line. Garbrandt's a massive underdog. I'm going to be picking Figgy. I think Figgy gets it done by knockout as well. Let's move on to Bobby Green taking on Jim Miller. Very good to see Jim Miller on the UFC 300 card. He was on UFC 100. He was on UFC 200. And I believe he won both of those fights by knockout. I find it hard to believe that he can knock out Jim Miller, though. You know, knock out Bobby Green, I mean. But maybe he could get it done with the grappling, with the wrestling, with the grappling. A lot of people are picking him here on Tapology. I see 61% of people are picking Miller. I'm on the Green side, though, man. I do think that Bobby Green, out of these two, is the better boxer. He is the better striker, in my opinion. Even though Jim Miller's recently looked like an absolute killer, knocking guys out silly. He knocked out Motta, which is a good win. He submitted Cerrone, which was a decent win. It was Cerrone's retirement fight. Knocked out Butler, who fought him on short notice. Submitted Gabriel Benitez, who is quite small for the weight class, but still did it anyway. Bobby Green has been fighting the high level of competition. You know, he did have the no contest to Jared Gordon, but he beat Tony Ferguson. He beat Grant Dawson by KO impressively, but then he did get really, really knocked out by Jalin Turner. I know that's kind of a weird way to describe a KO, but that was a late stoppage, man. And although I understand that Bobby Green may not have the most likable personality, the ref must have hated Bobby Green because he took a lot of damage in that fight. And he took a lot of damage to be coming back after 3 months. You know, 3 months in general after a normal TKO is a pretty quick turnaround. And it is a little bit scary to be coming back so quickly. But Jalin Turner's Jalin Turner, and I think he hits a lot harder than Jim Miller does at this point in his career. And I do think Bobby Green can keep this fight on the feet. He's got decent takedown defense. I think he can keep the fight on the feet against Jim Miller. And even then, Jim Miller hasn't really been looking to just offensively wrestle all the time. He seems pretty happy to strike. And I think that Bobby Green is the better striker in this matchup. So I'm going to pick Bobby Green to win what I think is going to be a very fun fight in this matchup. And Bobby Green is actually a pretty big favorite. He's minus 190 in the matchup, and Jim Miller's plus 165. But Miller seems to have the fan vote at the moment going into the weekend before the event. Jessica Andrade is taking on Marina Rodriguez. I'll be honest with you guys, I don't really have an opinion on this fight because it's just not a fight I'm really looking forward to, like, at all, to be honest. But I'm going to pick Marina Rodriguez. I feel like that's definitely not the popular pick. I'm seeing 73% of people are picking Andrade, but I think Rodriguez in this matchup, she's still Marina Rodriguez, you know what I mean? I thought that at one point Marina Rodriguez could be a champion. Of course, Amanda Lemos managed to derail that, and then Verna Jandiroba dominated her in the wrestling. She just beat Michelle Waterson-Gomez, but does that really count in the big 2024? Probably not. Marina Rodriguez, though, I think she beats Andrade. She's going to be taller. She's going to have the longer range. She fights from range very, very well. The way that Andrade is going to probably need to win this matchup is to make it scrappy. And that's what she does. She is going to be going in there, throwing lots of volume, throwing lots of hooks, closing the distance, being strong in the clinch, which is what she is, very strong in the clinch. And will probably be looking for takedowns as well. She was on a bit of a losing streak, but she would fought a lot on short notice. You know, I think she took on Erin Blanchfield on short notice. And I think she fought Yan Xiaonan on short notice as well. So, yeah, and then she fought Suarez. She fought a lot of fighters on short notice. I know she just KO'd Dern, but Rodriguez is a much better striker than Mackenzie Dern is. And although Rodriguez got caught by Lemos, she wasn't looking bad up until that moment. And I think that she should be able to at least score points on the feet against Andrade, land more volume from range. I think she should be able to get it done here. So I'm going to pick Rodriguez to win by decision. It's even odds right now, minus 110 each way, minus 110 Andrade, minus 110 Rodriguez. I guess the people on Tapology, the community, seems to be Andrade. I like Rodriguez in the matchup, though. I do like Rodriguez as a fighter. I know she's getting older for strawweight, but I really did believe at one point she could be a champion. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case anymore, but she's still a very good striker, and I still think that she is going to have at least the technical advantage on the feet in the matchup and should be able to land more volume. Now Jalin Turner is going to be taking on Renato Moicano. I like Jalin Turner. Jalin Turner's cool. His team has always been very supportive of my channel, and I have been pretty supportive of him, even though at one point, man, I feel like I actually picked against Jalin Turner and he won every time. I think I picked against him when he fought Malaki. I think I picked him against him when he fought Riddell, and he won those fights, of course. Of course, he beat the guys from New Zealand and Australia. I'm from New Zealand, of course, so he beat up my boys. And then he lost to Garbrandt when Garbrandt fought him on short notice, and then he lost to Dan Hooker when Dan Hooker managed to win the third round and really sneaked out that second round there at one point. Absolutely demolished Bobby Green, which I talked about earlier. That's one thing that Jalin Turner does, man, and he is very big for the weight class, 6'3", but he's not just like a skinny Sam Patterson 6'3". This guy is built. This guy is huge, man, and he's got crazy power. And I think he's going to be able to knock out Renato Moicano. I know that Renato Moicano is coming off a huge win of his own when he beat Drew Dober recently, and that was very recently. And I picked Dober to win that matchup, and of course I was proven very wrong there. But I think Jalin Turner is going to be able to keep the fight on the feet against Moicano. And the thing about Moicano is he has been finished before, and he doesn't have the most power on the feet. Now, don't get me wrong. Renato Moicano, he does use his striking to set up his grappling. He has got knockdowns before in the UFC. He has used his striking to set up takedowns before. I feel like Alexander Hernandez, that finish is kind of the perfect example of that. But I think that Jalin Turner is going to be able to keep it on the feet, and he's going to be so dangerous on the feet, and that power is so real. Every moment that the fight was on the feet against Garbrandt, he was landing big, and Garbrandt is a much better wrestler than Renato Moicano. And I know for a fact that Jalin Turner has since been working on his wrestling because he's been over in Dubai. He's been wrestling with Khamzat Chimaev. I think he should be able to keep it on the feet. I think he should be able to defend the takedowns of Moicano, and I'm going to pick Turner to win by KO. Moicano is a tough guy. He has been finished before. I don't think he's been KO'd in a long time, and a lot of those KO losses were when he fought at 145 pounds, when he was big for the weight class. Turner's minus 200. Once again, another favorite to pick on the card. I think Turner gets it done. I do think he beats Moicano. Even then, he's shown pretty good grappling against Mateusz Gamrot. To be fair, not so much against Dan Hooker, because Dan Hooker did get that takedown in round 3 and was able to hold him down quite effectively, but Turner was tired. And that's one thing as well about Turner. He does slow down a lot. The weight cut is going to be pretty tough for him. It kind of tends to always be quite tough for him. And he really did slow down in that Hooker matchup, so I feel like maybe if Turner doesn't get the KO early, Moicano might be able to put the wrestling on. But I think that Turner should be able to land, and I think he's going to land early, and I think he's going to land brutally. I think he finds that finish. Another fight I'm very much looking forward to is Sodiq Yusuff versus Diego Lopes, and I feel like these two fight in almost opposite sort of styles, if that makes sense. Yusuff's style is a little bit hard to kind of explain, but Diego Lopes is very easy to explain because he fights like a guy that fights at shooter box, but he doesn't train at shooter box. He's actually the coach of Alexa Grasso. I believe he coached Brandon Moreno at one point as well. Of course, he does train at, I believe is it still called Lobo Gym in Mexico, or maybe I'm thinking of a different one. The point is, Lopes is a very good coach, and he's a very good fighter, and he come out of nowhere, man, because this guy was just fighting on the regional scene, doing his thing. Lost to Evloev on very short notice and had a very good performance in that matchup there. And all of a sudden, he's going to potentially be a contender in the UFC after just fighting on the regional scene, winning and losing every now and then. Lost to Evloev. Looked good, though. Had Evloev in trouble on the feet in the first round. Had Evloev in trouble on the ground on the first and the third rounds. Then goes out there and finishes Gavin Tucker in 98 seconds. Goes out there and finishes Pat Sabatini in 90 seconds with a KO win. Pat Sabatini is a much worse striker than Sodiq Yusuff is, though. And Diego Lopes, as much as I love him, he is not the best striker at all. He's very aggressive, and he leaves himself very open. His striking is wild, but his best part of his game, of course, is that grappling, and that's where he's going to have an advantage against Sodiq Yusuff. Yusuff is going to be a significantly more technical fighter than Lopes, because Lopes his striking style really is just him kind of charging in and just hoping to land big shots and then set up takedowns or pull guard or find some way to get the fight down to the ground. Whereas Yusuff can be quite patient in fights, but he can also be, this is really hard to explain. He's patient, but he's high volume. As in, he picks his shots well, but he does throw quite a bit of volume. And Lopes throws high volume as well. So if this fight ends up on the feet, it really could be a war, which I do think Yusuff will probably land the more shots, but Lopes might land the harder shots. I think it comes down to whether or not Lopes can get the fight down to the ground. And I'm going to say yes, because Lopes gets the fight down to the ground in many different ways. He's a good wrestler. He's a decent wrestler. But he doesn't need to get a takedown to get the fight down. He can pull guard if he needs to. Yusuff won't follow him down, but maybe Lopes can get Yusuff in an awkward position where he just happens to fall down on top, and that would give Lopes a position, a chance to find up a submission position. Or Lopes could knock him down, which is very possible because he was able to hurt Evloev on the feet. He was able to hurt Sabatini on the feet, knocked him out, in fact. I'm going to go with Lopes. I feel like I might have just completely overcomplicated that breakdown and might have spoken a whole lot of nonsense. But I think Lopes does win by finish here. Yusuff's a tough guy. He had a tough fight against Edson Barboza. He's going to be looking for a revenge, but I do think it's Diego Lopes' season. And I know that a lot of people might think Lopes is a bit overhyped just because he's such a fun fighter. I think he's good, man. He's got the skill set to really hang in there with fighters like Yusuff, and I do think he can go out there and find the finish. So give me Lopes. He is the favorite, minus 135. Yusuff is plus 115. Yusuff might be an underdog that a lot of people look to, but I like Lopes to get it done and get it done inside the distance. He's a fan favorite. He's a personal favorite of mine. I will put it out there. I'm a pretty big fan of his. I think he's awesome. But biases aside, I still think that Lopes can get it done. This matchup I've already made a video about, and I actually made a video when everyone was trashing this fight, actually defending the fight. Except the issue that I had with this fight was Dana White went on a podcast or did an interview with someone, and he said that a super fight fell into his lap. A super fight for UFC 300, and it was going to be his rabbit in the hat. Would you believe me if I told you it was this fight? This isn't a super fight, but it's a fantastic fight, and I really do like it, honestly. Because I love Kayla Harrison coming into UFC 135-pound division. That division right now, aside from Juliana Pena making it interesting, with Amanda Nunes gone, it's dead right now. Raquel Pennington's the champion. Kayla Harrison is a very outspoken fighter. She's an entertaining fighter as well because she's so dominant and she's so good and she finds a lot of finishes. And she's very outspoken with her personality. I think she's unlikable, but likable at the same time, I feel. I feel like maybe she's a little bit more unlikable for most people, but she's going to make this division much more interesting with her being in it. The problem is she just needs to be able to make that weight because she was a 145 pounder. You see photos of Kayla Harrison. She is built, you know. She's a former judoka, of course, competed in the Olympics, had a lot of success in judo. And she's just built, you know what I mean? She's probably got bigger muscles than me, to be honest. And I think she's going to struggle to make 135. She was big for 145. Word on the street is that she's made multiple test cuts and has made 135 safely more than once. So I'm hoping she can do it. And if she can, I think she beats Holly Holm. Now, Holly Holm's going to be the better striker. I mean, we're talking about, I believe Holly Holm was like a multiple-time world champion in boxing. She's a good kickboxer as well, of course. Holly Holm, that's what she's known for. Knocked out Ronda Rousey way back in the day. And Kayla Harrison, of course, grappled against Ronda Rousey back in their judo days. And I believe she beat her. But, yeah, this actually could make things go all full circle. But I'm going to pick Kayla Harrison. I think she's just too good at getting takedowns. And when she gets you down to the ground, you can't get back up because she's so big. And she does so much damage on top. Really dominant ground and pound. Lots of TKO victories for Kayla Harrison. It is worth noting, though, that the competition she has fought really hasn't been that great in the PFL. She was kind of building up her career against not the best contenders. But to be fair, competitive fight against Pacheco, who showed incredible improvements in her own grappling in that matchup. And that was a close fight. Of course, I did think Pacheco ended up winning it, but it was a close fight nonetheless. I think Harrison can go out there, can beat Holly Holm, and I think that she could call for a title shot. I mean, she's nearly 34 years old. She probably won't be fighting in 5 years' time. I know Holly Holm's 42 years old, but I couldn't see Harrison fighting when she's 42. So let's see what Harrison can do, man. I'm actually looking forward to seeing Harrison in the UFC. Her odds are minus 450. Holly Holm's plus 360. That's a Kayla Harrison fight for you. That just kind of is how it is. And now we've got Calvin Kattar taking on Aljamain Sterling. Of course, this is Aljo's first fight since moving up to 145 pounds after having that career at 135, which I do still kind of maintain has a little bit of an asterisk on it because a lot of his wins, unfortunately for him, due to no fault of his own whatsoever, do have an asterisk. Of course, he won the belt by disqualification. And then it was a close fight, which I believe Aljamain Sterling won. I will say that. A lot of people think Jan won, but I think Aljo won round one. Then TJ Dillashaw was injured in that matchup. I thought Cejudo won that fight. I really do. Anyway, and then, of course, he lost to O'Malley. Now he's moving up to 145. He was big for 135. I think at 145, I don't think he's going to look too out of place. But Kattar's not small for this weight class either. He is 5'11". He's going to be taller. He's going to have the slightly longer reach. But I don't know if he can stop the takedowns of Sterling. I know that Kattar does have very good takedowns in the past. And a lot of people have been talking about Kattar's losses and been saying, hey, Kattar lost to these guys, but Sterling would too. I've seen a lot of people saying that, I know that was an injury as well. Actually, a lot of people were saying, though, that Andrade would beat Sterling. A lot of people were saying that Emmett would knock out Sterling. And Holloway would also probably finish Sterling. But I think Sterling gets it done. I think Sterling can get it down to the ground. This is Kattar's first fight since that knee injury, which was kind of weird because I feel like he threw a kick when he didn't need to. It was really weird. Like, I actually kind of imagined that he was going to land funny on it when he did it because it was weird. He threw like a roundhouse kick, but he jumped. And then Andrade circled out, so he kind of turned mid-air and just landed awkwardly on his leg. It was definitely an avoidable injury in my opinion. But now he's coming back. Aljo is your comeback fight. Stylistically, it's in a very good one because Kattar's a very good boxer. He's probably wanting to fight against a striker. Sterling can strike. Of course, he's very awkward with his striking. He got a very fun sort of moving style, which I think could translate quite well to this weight class. But he's a grappler, and I think he's going to get Kattar down. And I think he's going to be able to control Kattar with that grappling. His wrestling looked very good against Cejudo. His wrestling looked very good against Dillashaw. It looked very good against Jan. In fact, he backpacked Jan for, I believe, like 2 rounds straight. He's going to be able to do that against Kattar as well. When Aljo, he doesn't necessarily need to get you down. He just needs to get on your back. And he can do that from the clinch, and he can do that standing. He can do it when he takes you down. I think Sterling's just going to put Kattar in a lot of very awkward positions on the ground, and I think he's going to be able to win that way. So give me Aljo by decision. It's probably Aljo's first 3-round fight in a very, very long time, but I think it goes all 15 minutes, and I think Sterling is going to be the one getting his hand raised by decision. So Sterling minus 145, Calvin Kattar plus 125. Let's move on to Jiri taking on Alexsandar Rakic. I really want to pick Rakic, you know, because I've got a very good feeling. I'm going to make a follow-up video for this because this is my early prediction video. When I get back home in about 5 days or so, I will make a follow-up video with my final picks, and my pick could change on this one. I really could see myself picking Rakic, but I'm going to pick Jiri for now. Because I like Jiri's high volume. I like his aggressiveness, but man, this guy looks bad on the pads. That's the problem with Jiri. I always say never watch Jiri on the pads because he looks terrible. You see him hit a punching bag. His technique is horrific. But that's what makes him so good, is he doesn't fight like a traditional fighter. He's got his chin way up in the air. He's got his hands by his waist, and he's throwing his punches from his hips. It's almost like this guy never even went to just like a local boxing gym. He just kind of punched like someone who's never been taught how to throw a punch would punch, and he's just kind of stuck with it. But it's worked for him, you know. He had that massive run in, I believe it was Ryzen, massive run in Ryzen, and then he had that massive run in the UFC where he became the champion. Unfortunately got injured, come back to fight Alex Pereira, ended up getting KO'd. Some people say it was an early stoppage, but Jiri Prochazka himself says that he was out, so it's kind of a bit of a shrug, I guess. Rakic, though. What can I say about Rakic? Rakic is an interesting case for me. A lot of people have been claiming he was going to be a champion ever since he's been in the UFC. He's had hiccups every now and then. Obviously got injured to Jan, which is a very big shame. Lost to Oestermeer, which is also a little bit of a shame because Oestermeer hasn't gone on to be what I think a lot of people hoped he would be. Oestermeer lost to Daniel Cormier and just hasn't really been the same since, if that makes sense. Rakic is going to be the more technical striker, don't get me wrong. He's a bit of a sniper on the feet. He does throw a lot of leg kicks, but he's now got a leg injury, which could make things awkward. It's going to be a tough fight. It really is, because both guys can grapple as well. Both guys can make it interesting on the ground. But of course, Jiri's grappling probably won't be as good as Rakic's. I'm going to go with Prochazka just due to his high volume. I think he's got power as well, of course. I mean, he's knocked out, I believe, like 27 out of 29 wins. I'm going to go with Jiri. I'm going to go with Jiri to catch Rakic, but I could see Jiri getting caught because he's just so hittable. It's hard to deny what he's done, though, in the UFC. He knocked out Oestermeer himself, and then he also knocked out Dominic Reyes. Sorry, he knocked out Oestermeer after he beat Rakic. So my timing must be wrong with the DC stuff. Maybe this was after Oestermeer lost to DC. But either way, and then he beat Glover in that comeback match, which he was losing, but he's looking so good on the feet. So it's kind of tough to go with that. I'm going to pick Jiri. He's actually the underdog right now. So he's plus 110. Rakic is minus 130. I apologize. That breakdown was a bit bad. But here we go. Here we go. Charles Oliveira taking on Arman Tsarukyan. You're giving me Charles Oliveira at plus 200. Charles Oliveira is plus 205. And Arman Tsarukyan's minus 240. I'm picking Charlie Olives. I genuinely believe he wins. I genuinely believed Charles Oliveira beat Beneil Dariush, and everyone picked Beneil Dariush. And what did he do? He smoked him. And Beneil Dariush has looked terrible since. He's looked like an absolute shell of himself. Oliveira, he broke Beneil. I think he's going to be able to get Arman. But Arman's not a guy that's going to be broken. He's 27 years old. He's in the prime of his career. He wants that rematch with Islam Makhachev. And he's been on a pretty good run. I mean, he had a bad fight against Joaquim Silva, which does wonders for the Charles Oliveira agenda in this matchup. But he beat Beneil Dariush himself, and he knocked him out. And that's not really something that Dariush does all the time, and he knocked him out quick. He knocked him out early. Before that, he beat Ismagulov, pretty much retired him. I don't think he fights in the UFC anymore. He's doing like BK. He's doing something weird. I don't think he's fighting MMA anymore. I think he's like fighting in like some sort of modified rules kickboxing now. But Oliveira, more dangerous on the feet, more dangerous on the ground. And I think that's what it comes down to. And another one as well is we're going to be having new father Oliveira. Empty balls Oliveira. He just had a child. I think he's going to be going out there, and I think he's going to be able to land on Tsarukyan on the feet or throw off. Why did I say that? Why did that come to my head? Oh my God. That was straight off the dome. Anyway, I think Oliveira can land on the feet of Tsarukyan, and I think he can throw out submissions on the ground. So the problem that I do have with Olives is I think he's going to be too comfortable on the ground, because he was very comfortable being on bottom position against Beneil, and I didn't like it. Charles Oliveira cuts open very, very easily, and if Arman Tsarukyan can get on top, a couple of elbows, and he's going to cut Oliveira open. Oliveira is going to be bleeding, and that's not going to look good on the judges' scorecard. But I like Olives. I think he's going to land big on the feet or throw up a submission. He's just more dangerous, man. His takedown defense isn't that great. But of course, he was training for Islam Makhachev, so he would have been working on that. He would have been working on that before the Islam Makhachev fight as well. So he's been drilling that. He's been drilling wrestling all the time. I think he's the more dangerous fighter on the feet. He hits damn hard. I mean, this is a guy that knocked down Justin Gaethje, put him down badly. And it's just dangerous. That's what it comes down to for me. I know Arman Tsarukyan's dangerous. We just saw him KO Beneil Dariush faster than Olives did. Yeah. He can wrestle. He will be the better wrestler here. And Olives is going to be too comfortable on the ground. That's what it comes down to. So I feel like if you're picking Arman, you're picking him based on the fact that Oliveira is going to be way too comfortable being on his back in this matchup, which is going to be a little bit scary. But even then, Olives is dangerous on the ground. I think that Oliveira is going to be able to go out there. I think he's going to be able to hurt Tsarukyan. I think he's going to be able to hurt him on the feet or submit him. I'm picking Olives, man. I think he gets it done. I think it might be similar to the Gaethje fight where they're going to get scrappy on the feet, but Tsarukyan's not really used to a war on the feet, and Olives is. And I think Olives is going to touch him. I think Olives is going to hurt him. He's going to put him down, and he's going to submit him. So go Olives. Let's go Oliveira. I'm a massive Oliveira fan, but I do, once again, all bias aside, genuinely believes he wins against Arman Tsarukyan, and I was right about the Beneil Dariush fight. Arman Tsarukyan, I thought, also looked really bad against Silva. Silva had so many moments on the feet where I think if those same moments can arise, Oliveira is going to be able to capitalize much better than Joaquim Silva was able to. So give me Oliveira to win this one here. Nickal taking on Cody Brundage. When they announced this fight, by the way, they announced this as part of the first 3 fights being announced as part of the card. I thought this was the early prelim opener. I thought it was opening the card. That's what I literally said in my initial reaction video to this being announced. I was like, okay, so we got the early prelim opener announced, as well as Brundage and Oliveira. Sorry, as well as Garbrandt and what else was announced? Sterling's fights. It's on the main card. I mean, what's going on, man? I know they're trying to push Nickal to be a star, but I feel like this isn't the way to do it. I feel like this is kind of a way to make MMA fans believe that you're trying to push them too hard. And when you try and push something too hard, people try to resist it, you know? And I feel like that's kind of what's happening right now. You could put Nickal as the second to highest fight on the prelims, and I think people would be much, much happier with that being the case than him being on the main card. I feel like there's just a little bit too much of a spotlight. And he's untested. He's untested. You look at his UFC career. Who's he beaten? Jamie Pickett. Val Woodburn. Val Woodburn is not good. He just lost to Owen Elliott. Jamie Pickett just got cut from the promotion. Once again, not that great. And Donovan Beard. I like Donovan Beard. He's a nice guy. But, you know, he lost after losing to Nickal, you know, and it's just not good looks. Do I think Cody Brundage can beat him, though? No, he's not going to have the takedown defense to deal with the takedowns of Nickal. I don't think he's going to be dangerous on the feet to sleep him either. Like, I know Nickal's striking is still untested. We don't really know how good it is. He's gotten early KOs before. But once again, we don't know how he looks against a really good striker that is going to be able to hang out with him on the feet. Nickal's like minus 2,400 as well. The biggest favorite in UFC history, I believe. Yeah, I mean, maybe Brundage can shock the world if he lands something big or throws up a submission or does something, but Nickal just looks too quick on the ground. That's one thing that I've been so impressed with him, is just how fast he is, man. You look at his fight against Zach Borrego. He goes for the takedown, and he's rapid. He's just so quick and moving. You know, he works for that submission, does the same thing against Beard, knocks him down, and just throws up like 3 submission attempts so quickly. His grappling's good, his wrestling's good, of course. His striking's good, I guess, from what we've seen. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. I know someone's going to be picking Brundage, but I'm not going to say who it is. But you'll see. Someone is picking Brundage. I can't see it happening, though. I mean, honestly, though, at these odds, don't put Nickal in a parlay And if you've got like $5 lying around, just put it on Brundage, because that's going to return like 500 if he happens to win, I think. So no, it's only going to return 50 if he wins. Yeah, 50, I think. It's still worth it. Put a couple dollars on Brundage, I guess. But I'm going to pick Nickal. I always mess it up. I think Bo wins it. Let's move on to the BMF belt fight. And this is kind of where I'm a little bit disappointed with the card, because I really wanted 3 title fights. And I know we've got 3 title fights with the BMF belt. You really could have put Leon Edwards versus Bilal on here, you know. But hey, it is what it is. Let's talk about this fight. Max Holloway looks pretty big for 155. We've seen kind of photos of him training, videos of him training. It looks like he's put on weight, which is what he hadn't done when he had the opportunity to fight Dustin Poirier a couple of times, because I think both of those times he accepted the fight on short enough notice where he couldn't put on weight to be a 155-pound frame. And maybe he is going to commit to 155. I feel like now could be an opportunity for him to actually take the belt back at 145 with Ilya as the champion, but if he's committing to 155, we're going to find out about it at the weigh-ins, because he could look a lot bigger than what we're used to seeing Max Holloway. But that could maybe take something away from Holloway, as of course we know him for his insanely high volume output, and he doesn't have the most power. So maybe he's going to sacrifice a little bit of speed for a little bit more power, because Holloway just is not known as a finisher at all. He landed so much strikes, and he hasn't really managed to find that many KO wins. But at 155, that could change. Do I think he can beat Justin Gaethje, though? I'm going to say no, and I feel like there's quite a few factors to that. I think Gaethje at this weight class is going to have significantly more power. Of course, Max Holloway, as I said, isn't known for being a guy that does get knockouts. He's just known for incredibly high volume that nobody can keep up with. And I feel like Gaethje's going to be able to cancel out that volume that Holloway's going to be landing by landing the more power. Holloway's going to be landing the volume. Gaethje's going to land the power. And Holloway, I don't think he's never been knocked down before, but he's still been hit with the most significant strikes in UFC history without a knockdown, and that doesn't bode that well. I know that's a crazy stat, but that still tells me that Holloway, despite not getting knocked down, has taken a lot of damage in his UFC career, and there is a chance that a big, powerful guy, one of the most powerful guys at 155, Justin Gaethje, could land on that chin, and he could potentially make something happen there. Gaethje can wrestle. We saw it once against Rafael Fiziev. If things get tough on the feet, he could look to do that. I wouldn't mind seeing him look to do that in this matchup. But it's hard to trust him, because the thing about Sean Strickland is I feel like he could have beaten Dricus du Plessis if he just mixed in some takedowns and he just refused to. Maybe Gaethje's kind of like that as well, so you can't really trust him. But Gaethje's also got good cardio, trains at Elevation, been 5 rounds. Has he been all 5 rounds before? Maybe. Anyway, the point is Gaethje can keep up a pretty high pace. He looked good against Rafael Fiziev. He looked pretty good against Poirier when he knocked him out. I think he's going to be able to beat Holloway. But I think Holloway's been overlooked. I'm seeing a lot of people saying, oh no, poor Holloway, he's going to get slept. I think Holloway's going to look fine, man. I think he's going to look good out there. I mean, there is a chance that Gaethje knocks him out, and I probably will pick Gaethje to win by KO, which might sound crazy as Holloway hasn't been finished by KO before, hasn't been knocked down before, but he's still taking damage in his career, man. And he's moving up to a high weight class with Gaethje, with big time power, coming off a pretty good momentum shift as well. And maybe a big finish for Gaethje could get him a title shot at 155. So we'll see. It'll be up to him and Oliveira. I'm going to go with Gaethje. I think he gets it done. I think Holloway's been overlooked in the matchup, though. I think he's been a little bit disrespected by a lot of fans. But Gaethje at minus 210, Holloway at plus 180. I like Gaethje. I like Gaethje to win by KO. Seems like a lot of people kind of agree as well. Let's move on to the co-main event. I'm starting to lose my voice. Oh, I'm too excited for the card, man. I really am. I'm going to be live. I'm going to lose my voice live, man. It's going to be absolutely ridiculous, that live stream and this card. Weili Zhang defending against Yan Xiaonan. I'm going to pick Weili Zhang. I just think she's significantly more well-rounded than Yan Xiaonan. Now, don't get me wrong. Yan Xiaonan trained at Team Alpha Male with Uriah Faber, whose name slipped my mind for a second there. I don't know how that happened, but trains with Uriah Faber, and Uriah Faber is known for creating fantastic game plans for his fighter. And Uriah is probably going to find some weakness in Zhang, but the problem is I feel like Yan would have to expose a striking weakness in Zhang to win in this matchup, whereas Zhang has really good wrestling, has really good grappling. She recently just dominated Amanda Lemos with the wrestling. beat up Kayla Esparza with her own wrestling there, looked really good. And then, of course, before that, beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk, where there was Jędrzejczyk, where, of course, there was a little bit of grappling in that matchup as well. I think Zhang's very powerful on the feet. So was Jan. I mean, Jan just slept Jessica Andrade, which was quite impressive, and beat up Mackenzie Dern too on the feet. But I think that Zhang's just so much more well-rounded. I do wish this fight was in China. I think this is a missed opportunity to put a massive fight night on in China, because the UFC does want to build themselves up in China. But I feel like this is also a pretty good showcase for Chinese MMA. I'm going to go Weili Zhang. I think she wrestles Yan Xiaonan. I think she puts Yan Xiaonan in a lot of uncomfortable positions on the ground. And I think she gets it done that way. I'm going to pick Zhang by finish as well. I think that she's going to be the much better wrestler, the much better grappler. So give me Zhang to find the finish at some point in this matchup. Yan being a little bit overlooked, as she is a sniper on the feet. She does have big power. But I think that Zhang is still going to be able to go out there and get it done. The odds do very heavily favour Yan Xiaonan at minus 360. And Yan Xiaonan is plus 300. So once again, very, very wide odds on this card. But now the main event. Everyone's divided on the main event. A lot of people think Alex Pereira is going to win. A lot of people think that Jamahal is going to win. I'm just going to go out there and say that my pick has been the same ever since the fight was announced. I'm picking Alex Pereira in the matchup. I apologize. I just quickly ran away, drank a lot of water, and hopefully my voice can be ready to talk about the main event. And honestly, I just think it comes down to Alex Pereira being the better striker, and that's where a lot of people are picking Jamahal to go out there and get a win. Because Alex Pereira, although he's got this crazy kickboxing background, and it has translated unbelievably well into MMA, the middleweight champion, the light heavyweight champion now, of course, and now he's going to be taking on the former light heavyweight champion in Jamahal, he still is hittable, and he still does have weaknesses in his striking, don't get me wrong. But I don't know if Jamahal is the guy to expose that. I think that Alex Pereira is still skilled enough on the feet to be able to see everything coming. That's the thing about Alex. His hands are low, but he's just so good at moving out of the way at the perfect time every single time, and I understand that's going to get him caught. And it did get him caught against Israel Adesanya, but that wasn't from range. That was Alex Pereira getting a little bit overzealous in a situation, and Israel Adesanya himself said he just threw, and he didn't even know what he hit Alex Pereira with, and he got the KO. So Israel Adesanya himself said that it was a situation where Pereira swarmed him, and as he just threw, and he was the one that landed first in that situation. Alex got knocked out. Hopefully he's learned from that. I don't think Hill is going to be able to catch him from range. I feel like the way that Hill is going to have to catch Pereira is kind of in a similar manner to the way that Izzy did, in a way that he's going to have to overwhelm Pereira and get in close, because Pereira's going to be, I mean, they're both the same height with similar reach, so I can't really go off that. But I think Pereira is going to be the much better striker from range. I know that Jamal's got very nice boxing, but I think from range he's going to be the better striker. He's going to be tapping away with those massive leg kicks over and over and over and over again. He's going to be working the body of Jamahal, which is a little bit soft as well. Once again, a bit rich coming from me, but Jamahal is a little bit soft in the midsection, so Alex Pereira could be targeting there as well, trying to land some big shots in that area of his body too. But I think Pereira is going to catch him. I think Pereira KOs Jamahal. I'm seeing a lot of people say that Jamahal is going to wrestle here, and maybe he does. But Alex Pereira, of course, would have been working on his wrestling the whole time he's been in the MMA. And yes, his wrestling's not that great. I mean, I know Israel Adesanya, I think, went 1 for 2 on takedowns against him, which isn't the best look. Jan Blachowicz got him down, and Jan Blachowicz isn't really a big offensive wrestler. But I don't think we've ever seen Jamahal get a takedown in the UFC, so it's hard to tell how good his offensive wrestling really is. But I think Alex Pereira on the feet, I think he's going to be too technical. I think he's going to fight from range too well. I think he's going to see everything coming that Jamahal is going to be bringing at him. And of course in the grappling, there's a big unknown, I feel like, for both guys. So give me Alex Pereira in this matchup. I'm going to have to break this fight down a little bit more in detail, but I really have lost my voice, and I'm about to drive away in 8 hours, so I better get to sleep. That's my pick. I understand a lot of people are divided though, so if you are picking Jamahal, please let me know why in the comments, and please let me know why you're picking Alex if you are. I don't want anyone to really kind of debate in the comments, but let's just have an open conversation. It's a very intriguing fight. The odds are pretty close because Alex Pereira is minus 135, Jamahal plus 110. I like Pereira though. I really do think that Pereira is going to be able to catch Hill, and is going to become like the ultimate undisputed champion because he beat the former champ Yuri, and now he's going to beat the other former champ that had to vacate the belt due to the injury. And I think he's going to be able to do it. I think he's going to beat Jamahal Hill here. I think he's going to knock him out. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next. Does he fight at 301 versus Ankalaev? Who knows? Or does he fight again versus Yuri? Or maybe even Rakic? Does Rakic finally get his title shot? Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you're going to be there for the live stream. Let me know what you think of the card. And I'll see you guys in the next one.